Now we have time. Probably we have have 30 minutes for discussion. So if you have any questions or comments for these two presenters, please share it with us.
Dennis, I have two, I would say, echoes and at the same time question. The first question or remark. The first one, I mean, I'm pleased to hear yourself presented in a more modern ways. A lot of elements, especially in the line of visuals and techniques, sociological, and that's dimension I felt interesting to adapt or to bring it in the sense of understanding better Macau, which seems to me updating our way of knowing Macau and his history and his community. On the other hand, I ask, what is at the same time the relationship of the center with some institutions and centers in Macau? What I feel is like, I wonder what is done has also in much consideration on the local institution like International Institute and some association, Chinese and Macanese. How is the relationship with your own work? So from my side is to say, the first part is a kind of opening for me on the understanding of history and knowledge about Macau. The second one, a little bit more critical in the sense, is it the Xavier Center also sufficient enough and deep enough in connection with local institutions, Macanese, Portuguese, and Chinese on history and sociology and so on?
Thank you for your comment. I think, of course, we're living through this period when synergies are important, but there are certain limitations. Okay, of course, the sharing of information is perhaps one of the important mechanisms. And when we organizing things, we're organizing events. It's important to disseminate this and to involve different partners, Chinese, Portuguese, international partners, partners from mainland China. And as I mentioned, the center is only starting basically. So there was a period when there were lectures and some events, but I think we are only now starting to sort of create the base of researchers, of people who could be actively promoting the center. And so, of course, the connection, liaison with the local organizations is extremely important. That's why it's just little steps. We're talking about incremental development. So there is a lot of groundwork to be done still. And of course, this is very important. However, we don't want to lead on too many things. So whenever there is a project suggestion or a partnership, we would be happy also to participate. And when there are several partners, as I mentioned also, we have this statement, kind of manifesto for the research center. Collective effort is always, sometimes it helps, sometimes, of course, it has some frictions, tensions, and so on. But we work through it, and we plan for a better result when we have this inputs from different organizations and different disciplines. So that's probably more a question, an answer to your second comment. But yes, thank you. We are trying to not forget traditional methods, of course. I'm a scholar myself. but it's important for the young generation to be interested in research. So this kind of maybe new updates and new streams where they can generate knowledge is very important for attracting young people in Macau in particular, to retain them. And this is also very important to keep the people here, to provide them this academic environment, to maybe in more colloquial way, to kind of jazz up these intellectual exchanges. Like, for instance, this symposium, we learn from other scholars, maybe not, this is not necessarily our expertise, but we learn and we see what could be done together. I think that's why we should participate in different events, provided we have time, we have teaching to do, research, and our individual projects. But I think this is very important also to engage young people at USJ, for instance, or other universities.
Thank you, Dennis, for your answer, and thank you, Father Sequeira, for your question. And we have a question from Bernard Lee to Cristina. The question is, and Bernard Lee said, it's a very interesting topic. My question is, how can the Confucius leadership reconcile with the Western leadership theories? That is transformational leadership.
Thank you, Bernard Lee, for the question. Yes, this is a very good question. To study that, for me, it's always good to have a pragmatic approach, to have the positive aspects from the both ways of leadership, as for the Confucius leadership and from the Western leadership. And what I would do is to try to synthesize the positive aspects from different ways of leadership. I have another question from Fernando. How do you foresee these 5 Confucian virtues in these leaders interacting with each other? For instance, some leaders might have a stronger Ren, which somehow may limit his or her Li while facing the COVID crisis. This is a very interesting question. I really like. Thank you for asking me this. I was doing my research in the 5 constants, and I saw that there is a certain level of priority for Confucius, and Ren was in the first place. I would say that I would try to assess their constants used and see which of the constants the leader is using more. But definitely a person is not perfect. Not all the 5 constants would be used in this case. And yeah, I would say it's a mix of virtues that I would see from the leaders.
May I jump in on this very question also? My observation, of course, I'm not a specialist at all. It would seem that, for example, to be specific on the topic of a dialogue with China between the Vatican, the Holy See, and China, I would put forward the concept of Ren as the most important, because both parties, I repeat, the Vatican and Beijing, they need to show a benevolence at the making, even if this benevolence is not supported, excuse my being totally lay into the subject, even if this Ren is not supported by pragmatism or Li, as the benevolence element might be from the side of the Christians the most effective of the forward elements to be situated in China. And in a way, this also connects to what Father Xavier has said today and yesterday also about the historical awareness. Maybe you can achieve more Ren attitude about a higher historical awareness. I don't know what people first, Dr. Liu and others might say about this.
Thank you, Dr. Vasila, for the comment. Yes, in my presentation, I put the 5 constants in a strategic way, actually. I didn't mention this, but yes, benevolence is the first one in terms of priority. And then I put following the benevolence, the righteousness and propriety, and then wisdom, following by trustworthiness, which is already in a level of relevance based by Confucius.
Christina, we have one more question from Father Gassana. What element of Confucian ethics can be linked to servant leadership? That is a form of leadership that tries to serve the most needy, the weakest members in the society.
Yes, thank you, Father Franz. I saw the comment, and for me it's very, very interesting, because actually for Confucian leadership, it says that we have to be more respectful for the superiors and to the elders. So I would take this into account in my paper and try to understand how this would work under the Confucian leadership, which is a bit controversial, I would say, servant leadership and Confucian leadership.
Thank you, Christina. And Dennis, Cynthia has a question.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. Very interesting question. I think we all know St. Paul's Cathedral. We even the image of St. Paul's was also used for one of our posters of the seminar Identity. So of course this is a kind of symbol of Macau, which has become a tourist icon. So as a very important building institution, we are losing our regional meanings. And for many visitors, this is another kind of vernacular place for staging, for taking selfies and so on. And definitely there is this dissonance between this kind of maybe commercialization and touristification and preservation, because there were some acts of vandalism and just the whole idea of this unregulated mass flow of people through this very important relic of Macau. It's also something that creates frictions. It creates frictions also for the local population, and we have to understand, of course, Macau as a city is also should be considering the residents, not only tourists. So I think that's a very important. There are many issues related to cultural politics, and not only St. Paul. It's also other buildings that how can we give second life to some of the heritage? And I think this is also a very important question. how we can preserve this heritage in Macau, not necessarily fossilizing it as a sort of tourist attraction. It can be used sometimes, it can be used for different other purposes, and we have some students actually studying this, how this kind of reinvigoration or preservation can happen at a lesser cost, and how we can preserve the authenticity of these places as well, without compromising the need, or actually this kind of education for tourists or for school tours and so on, or mass tourism, which is of course was dominating Macau until 2020. So I think there are many entangled issues related to cultural politics, and it's actually often narratives that come from the government or tourism office, how the city should be framed or how it should be promoted. At the same time, the authorities related to preservation of heritage in Macau, they also have their word and they should be listened to. And so this is also a platform for dialogue, how we can share this kind of cultural heritage. So I think that's a long answer to a very important question. And not a full answer, of course.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
So thank you, Dennis and Cristina, for your important contribution to this conference. We have seen how Macau heritage and Chinese Confucianism can contribute to a sincere dialogue between the West and the East. I think both topics do provide some insights to the question. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah,
and listen to us and questions. Thank you so much for your comments.
And Bernadette said Hangzhou University also published something about Jun's leadership in the past. So probably this can give a reference to Cristina. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Bernard. I'm taking note of this. Thank you so much.
Okay, so now probably we can have a break, and the next session will start at 5:30.